Cool. Alrighty. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the interview prep workshop. My name is Sarah Khan. I'm the transfer resource specialist this year. And today I just wanted to share some tips on how to prepare for an interview. So just to briefly overview what I'll be covering today, I'll start with some very general job searching tips. So I'll just briefly mention one or two different websites that you can visit to look for internships or jobs. Then we'll jump right into preparing for the interview, how to prepare for that, and then what to expect going in. I'll also cover some interviewing tips, so what to do when you're in the interview and how to do really well in that. And then we'll do some resources. And then at the end, I'll talk about mock interviews, which I will be holding going forward after this week. So like I said, just very briefly covering searching for jobs. The two that I would recommend are LinkedIn and Handshake. So LinkedIn is really cool because not only can you search and apply for jobs, but you can network with recruiters as well. So for example, if you went to like the career fair and you talk to a recruiter for a company, you can connect with them on LinkedIn, and then message them after and say, hey, I want to learn more about this. So that's a really great way to kind of talk to recruiters. Handshake is something really similar. And I would recommend Handshake if you're looking for internships, because people who post on there are typically looking for people who are still in school. So you don't have to worry about filtering out jobs that are for recent graduates or, rising or, stuff like that. So definitely use Handshake if you're looking for internships. You can also message recruiters on there. I haven't done this myself, but I know that that's something that you can do. So those are the two that I would recommend if you're looking for internships. But of course, there's ton of other ones as well, like Indeed or Glassdoor, things like that. Lastly, I just wanted to briefly mention club events. A lot of different clubs have industry nights. They have info sessions. They also all host their own career development workshops. So definitely keep an eye out for those. Mostly every engineering major has a club associated with it. So for example, AICE, I know there's one for MatSci, there's one for mechanical engineering, and they have their own industry nights that they host, I think once a year. So definitely keep an eye out for that as well. That's a really great way to connect with recruiters and kind of get more information about a specific company that you may want to apply for. So preparing for the interview. First of all, if you have an interview scheduled, congratulations. That's a really big deal. So pat yourself on the back for that. So these are some tips that have worked for me in the past. So the first thing would be to write out your answers beforehand. So create a doc where you kind of outline all of your relevant experience. So you know exactly what to say. So for my doc, I have kind of those general typical questions that they ask, like talk about yourself or outline your experience, and I'll write out all the relevant experience that I have for the position that I applied for. This way I know exactly what to say going into the interview, and I'm not kind of reaching back into my memory trying to pull out things that are related to the job. It also just makes sure that you're speaking clearly, you're not like stuttering, you're not, you know exactly what to say basically, and you seem very prepared that way. The second tip I have is to review the company's website. So you want to go over their core values and you want to think of questions to ask. This comes across really well because it shows that you did your due diligence and you looked into that company, you know what they stand for. Don't just focus on maybe the one part of that company that you're applying for. Look at the company as a whole. I recently heard that, or I learned this, that as much as it is an opportunity for them to interview you, it's also an opportunity for you to interview them. So this is a great way to look into their, the culture of the company, how they kind of operate, what they do across the board. And it's a way for you to come up with questions you may want to ask about working there, what that would be like. Next is kind of a given, but review the job description. We do tend to apply for anywhere from like 50 to like 150 jobs at any point. So definitely read the job description before, so you know what what position you're applying for, and that way you can tailor your answers to match. So if you know that they're looking for someone who has coding experience, then you can be sure to mention that you have that experience when you're talking about yourself and things like that. So it's a great way to mention those keywords that they're looking for in a candidate. And then of course, practice, practice, practice. You want to come off as well prepared. And the only way to do that is if you practice beforehand what exactly you're going to say. You don't want to be too general when you're answering questions. They're looking for something very specific. They think you have that quality. So you just want to make sure that you are kind of affirming that you do have that quality, you have that experience. So just practice what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. So just some brief interviewing tips. You do want to dress appropriately. Even if it's a virtual interview, make sure you have, like a nice shirt on or a nice sweater on or whatever. I'm currently in a hoodie, so this is not dressing appropriately. But if it's an interview, you do want to dress nice. If it's virtual, you also want to set up your background. So if you can sit in front of a solid background, make sure there's nothing distracting in your surroundings. You want to make sure that when you're speaking, they're focusing on you and not something else in your room. So try and make sure that you have as little distractions around you as possible. Try not to fidget. You do want to sit still so you're not distracting the interviewers from what you're saying. I personally have a habit of moving my hands around a lot when I talk, and so I have to make an effort not to do that when I'm interviewing or when I'm talking to someone like that. So definitely just keep that in mind of like what you're doing, even if it's unconsciously. And then take a deep breath. It's really easy to talk really fast. This is something that I do, and I always have to kind of remind myself to slow down, speak at a good pace, speak clearly, and make sure that you're getting across exactly what you want to get across, and don't rush. Take a deep breath. You're qualified for the job. That's why they're interviewing you. So definitely keep that in mind. And then I just wanted to cover some resources. So the Division of Career Pathways is your best friend when it comes to anything related to your career. You can make an appointment or you can drop in to receive advice from a counselor. They can review your resume, they can review your cover letter, they can tell you where exactly to go if you're looking for a very specific position. So definitely keep that in mind. The Writing Center also can review your resume and or your cover letter. So you can either talk with a peer advisor or you can talk to one of their other advisors, and they'll go through your resume or your cover letter line through line. So definitely utilize that as a resource as well. And then me. So you can reach out for questions, or if you ever want to practice, just let me know. I can help you work on your resume or your cover letter. I've had a template that I followed for both for the last 3 years. So if you ever want to see what that looks like, let me know. I also have linked here, and these slides will be sent out later on, but I have linked the elevator pitch workshop I did last quarter, and then the LinkedIn workshop I did a couple weeks ago. So definitely review those if you want some more help on those specific things. They're also available on the Engineering Undergraduate Affairs website. So if you go to our website, you go to the transfer tab, all of the previous workshops from my year and then also the year before me, his workshops are also there as well. So definitely check that out if you want some more information on that. And then, okay, I see AICHI is having an info session. So if you're interested about that, you can contact Adriana. I think SWE has info sessions throughout the year as well. I know BMES just had one this week. So definitely keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. And then I wanted to do mock interviews. So if you go to this link, you can sign up for a really brief 15-minute call with me, and we can kind of go through some of the general interview questions. I can ask you those questions. You can do your best to kind of get those answers out there in the way that you want to. So I'll ask you questions like, tell me about yourself. What are your strengths, your weaknesses? Why would you be a good fit for this position? Things like that. So if you ever want to practice with someone, just let me know. You can sign up through this link again. It's a brief 15-minute call on Zoom, and we can go over anything that you would like to cover relating to interviews. So yeah, definitely utilize that resource, and I'll be doing this for the rest of the quarter, and after that as well if you need it. So just let me know. I kind of breezed through that, but are there any questions? Feel free to throw it in the chat or unmute yourself if you like. I'm here to answer them.
Hey Sarah, yeah, I have a question. I actually have like a 30-minute phone screening is what they called it tomorrow. So is that like the same thing as an interview? Because I've had like phone like different virtual and phone interviews with the company, and then I ended up having to go like in person. So I'm not sure about like how this company is. So
Yeah.
what's the, do you know what like the really the main difference is between a phone screening or an interview?
Yeah, so typically a phone screening will be with a recruiter, and they'll just kind of get more information about your background, and they're kind of just checking for whether or not you meet the requirements for the job. So it'll be super brief. They'll just
Mhm.
ask you your experience. They'll ask you um, not too much about like why you would want to work there, but mostly they're just checking to see that you're qualified for the job. And then if you pass the phone screening, then you'll go and meet like senior management or your supervisor or whatever. But that's typically what a phone screening is.
Okay. So if I know that I'm meeting with like the hiring manager for that
Mhm.
position, is that like more of like an interview, like even though they called it a 30-minute phone screening?
Yeah. My advice would be to treat it as an interview. That's typically what I
Mhm.
do. Um, and if you're meeting with the hiring manager, uh, yeah, I mean, treat it as an interview. But I think that phone screenings are typically a little less formal than interviews would be. But still kind of,
Mm,
treat it as an interview, like I said.
okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Does anyone else have any questions? Feel free to throw it in the chat. If you don't feel comfortable unmuting, let me know. Great. Well, I will pause the recording here, and if you want to ask a question later on, feel free to stick around.